The afternoon sun hung lazily over Mango Park Mall, its golden rays bouncing off rows of polished cars. Shoppers strolled casually through the lot, some balancing shopping bags, others fumbling for their keys. Amid the bustle, Kendra Wallace, a hardworking woman in her early 30s, finally found a decent parking spot. Kendra eased her modest silver sedan carefully between the painted white lines. She was always mindful of how she parked. Her father had drilled into her as a teenager, respect other people's space, leave enough room because you never know who might park next to you. She shifted into park, cut the engine, and glanced around. On both sides, the lines were clear, and her car sat neatly centered. Satisfied, she grabbed her purse and adjusted her sunglasses.
Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell, because here we tell real-life lessons through real and relatable stories.
Just as she opened her door, she heard it. The sharp screech of tires, followed by the roar of an engine revving far too loudly for a mall parking lot. Her brows furrowed. Seriously? Who drives like that here? A gleaming black luxury sports car came whipping around the corner, hugging the curb as if it were on a racetrack. It skidded slightly before sliding into the spot right beside hers. Kendra flinched as the car settled in, its engine rumbling like it wanted everyone within a mile to notice it. Out stepped Raymond Corbin, tall, mid-40s, dressed in an expensive tailored suit that screamed, "I charge $500 an hour." His slick-back hair glistened in the sunlight, and on his watch that probably cost more than Kendra's entire car sparkled obnoxiously. He locked his car with a dramatic beep, then immediately turned his attention toward Kendra. "Excuse me," he barked, striding over before she could even step away. "How did you park like that? That's ridiculous." Kendra blinked, thrown off by the hostility. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You heard me." He gestured sharply at the cars. "That hunk of junk of yours is practically glued to my car. I could barely get out. You need to move." Kendra glanced between the vehicles. Her sedan sat squarely in the middle of the lines. There was plenty of space between them. In fact, Raymond's car was the one angled slightly over the divider. Keeping her cool, she said evenly, "Sir, I'm parked in the lines. There's plenty of room." Raymond scoffed, laughing under his breath like she'd just told the funniest joke of the year. "Plenty of room? Huh, maybe for you. But my car isn't some cheap metal box you pick up at a used lot. I paid $150,000 for this beauty, and I don't need dents, scratches, or greasy fingerprints from—" He waved dismissively toward her car. "That thing." Kendra's lips parted in disbelief. "With all due respect, my car has just as much right to be here as yours. I parked properly. If you're unhappy, maybe you should try one of the other open spots around here." The vein on Raymond's temple pulsed. His voice grew louder, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers. "Do you know who I am? Clearly you don't. The name's Corbin. Corbin Law Firm. Law is my game. And when someone disrespects me, when someone disrespects my property, I don't let it slide." Kendra sighed. Of course, one of those people, entitled, loud, and ready to swing their status around like a weapon. Still, she refused to match his arrogance. "Sir, no one disrespected you. I'm not moving my car." Raymond's mouth curled into a smug smile. "Oh, you'll move it, or I'll see you in court." Kendra stared at Raymond, trying to decide if he was serious or just performing for the handful of shoppers who had slowed their steps to watch the commotion. His voice carried like a megaphone across the lot, commanding attention. "Court?" Kendra repeated, arching a brow. "You're threatening to sue me for parking in a parking space?" Raymond smirked, straightening his tie as if preparing for a courtroom battle already. Not just for parking, for reckless endangerment of private property, for emotional distress, for— He paused dramatically, pointing at her car with disdain, "for forcing me, a man of my status, to squeeze out of my vehicle like some circus act. Do you know how humiliating that is?" A teenage boy passing with a shopping bag snorted out a laugh. "Bro, You literally just stepped out of your car. It looked fine to me." Raymond snapped his head toward him. "Mind your business, kid. This doesn't concern you." The boy raised his hands innocently and walked off, but not before whispering loudly to his friend, "Dude's crazy." Kendra pressed her lips together, fighting the urge to laugh. The more Raymond talked, the more absurd he sounded. But absurd or not, he was also relentless. "Look," she said firmly, "I have groceries to buy. I'm not moving my car because there's nothing wrong with where I parked. You'll be okay." That only fueled his indignation. His face reddened, and he took a step closer. "Do you realize who you're talking to? I don't just get over things. I handle things. I solve problems. And right now, you are the problem." Kendra crossed her arms, standing her ground. "No, sir. The problem is your attitude, and I'm not entertaining it anymore." She turned to walk toward the store, but Raymond's voice boomed behind her. "Don't you dare walk away from me." His shoes clapped across the pavement as he followed her. "You can't just disrespect me and think you'll get away with it. I am filing a lawsuit against you. Tomorrow, $25,000 in damages." Kendra spun on her heel, incredulous. "You're going to sue me over a parking spot?" "Not just the spot," he said, puffing out his chest like a rooster in a fight. "The mental anguish you've caused me, the anxiety, the near panic attack I suffered trying to get out of my car. This is trauma, and trauma deserves compensation." A woman pushing a stroller nearby gasped and shook her head. "Over parking? Lord, help him." Raymond ignored her. He was too caught up in his own performance. He pulled a sleek business card from his jacket pocket and waved it in Kendra's face. "Corbin Law Firm. That's me. You'll be hearing from my office." Kendra glanced at the card, then back at him, completely unfazed. "Well, Mr. Corbin, maybe what you really need isn't the lawsuit. Maybe it's a therapist." With that, she pivoted again, striding toward the mall entrance.
The air
Raymond's
inside
voice
Mango
chased
Park
after her,
District
full of
Court
wounded
was
pride.
cool and
"Don't
heavy
you walk
with
away from me.
anticipation.
You haven't heard the last of
courtroom was
this.
half full.
I'll see you in
A
court,
mix
Miss
of law
Wallace."
clerks, other litigants waiting their turn, and a few curious locals who had caught wind of a bizarre lawsuit making its way onto the docket. At the plaintiff's table sat Raymond Corbin, looking as though he had stepped out of a glossy magazine ad for lawyers. His navy blue suit was pressed to perfection, his tie patterned with tiny golden scales of justice. On the table before him lay a pristine leather briefcase, his business cards fanned out neatly beside a stack of papers he had highlighted with obsessive precision. He sat with his chin raised, eyes sweeping the room like a king about to address his court. Across the aisle, Kendra Wallace sat calmly, her back straight, her face composed but bemused. She wore a simple but elegant cream blouse tucked into tailored black slacks. She hadn't hired an attorney. She didn't feel the case was serious enough to warrant it. All she needed, she figured, was the truth and the good sense of any reasonable judge. Still, she clasped her hands tightly in her lap, knowing that unpredictable men like Raymond had a way of turning even the simplest matters into drawn-out chaos. At the bench, the bailiff announced, "Case number 10733, Raymond Corbin versus Kendra Wallace. Claim, emotional distress and reckless endangerment. Amount sought, $25,000. The door at the side of the courtroom opened, and in walked Judge Emerson, a dignified woman in her late 50s, dressed in her flowing black judicial robe. Her presence alone demanded respect. With measured steps, she approached the bench, sat, and surveyed the litigants with sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. "Good morning," she began, her tone firm but even. "Mr. Corbin, Miss Wallace, we are here today to hear the plaintiff's claim. Mr. Corbin, as you initiated this lawsuit, you may begin." Raymond sprang to his feet with the energy of a man auditioning for a lead role. He smoothed his tie and launched into his opening statement as though the courtroom were a Broadway stage.
Thank you, Your Honor. 3 weeks ago, I was subjected to one of the most distressing, humiliating experiences of my adult life. I, a respected attorney of this county, was forced into an unthinkable situation when the defendant recklessly parked her massive, unsightly vehicle mere inches from my luxury automobile, jeopardizing not only my property but my very peace of mind. I suffered, and continue to suffer, mental anguish from the ordeal. Therefore, I am seeking damages in the amount of $25,000. Judge Emerson's expression remained unreadable. I see. And what evidence do you intend to present today? Raymond gestured proudly to his briefcase. I have photographic documentation, a detailed personal account, and corroborating notes I took immediately after the incident. Very well. You may proceed. Raymond clicked open his briefcase and retrieved a glossy 8x10 photograph, marching toward the bench like a triumphant general. This, he declared, is a photograph of the defendant's monstrosity of a vehicle, which she deliberately wedged next to mine, making it near impossible for me to exit without bodily harm or damage to my property. The bailiff collected the photo and handed it to Judge Emerson, who examined it closely. She raised one brow. Mr. Corbin, according to the metadata on this photo, it appears this was taken at night. Raymond coughed into his fist. Well, you see, Your Honor, I often travel internationally. My phone is set to European time zones. That's why the timestamp appears, well, misleading. Kendra pressed her lips together, suppressing a laugh. Several people in the gallery chuckled audibly. Judge Emerson gave a long, pointed look. So you are asking me to disregard the timestamp on the only piece of evidence you have thus far presented? Raymond stiffened. Yes, Your Honor, because the truth lies not in numbers or timestamps, but in the lived experience, my experience of barely surviving the humiliation that day. Kendra finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. With all due respect, Your Honor, I parked normally, inside the lines. He escalated the situation because he didn't like my car next to his. That's all this is. Raymond wheeled on her, his face reddening. Lies! You mocked me, Miss Wallace. You dismissed my trauma, my anguish, my humanity. And you, Mr. Corbin. Judge Emerson's voice sliced through the air like a gavel strike. You will address this court with professionalism. If you cannot control your emotions, you will be held in contempt. Is that clear? Raymond swallowed hard, bowing his head slightly. Yes, Your Honor. The judge leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Very well, we will continue, but let me be clear. This courtroom is not a stage for theatrics. It is a place of law, and it will proceed accordingly.
Raymond strutted back to his table, puffing his chest. Your Honor, this woman's reckless parking caused me severe emotional distress. I nearly had a panic attack. Judge Emerson cut him off. Do you have medical records to prove that? Raymond smirked. I don't need a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I can diagnose myself. The courtroom chuckled. Emerson's gavel slammed. Mr. Corbin, self-diagnosis is not evidence. Next. Kendra stood calmly. Your Honor, I parked in the lines. He didn't like my car next to his and tried to intimidate me into moving. That's all. Raymond jumped up. Lies! That hunk of junk is a hazard. Sit down, Judge Emerson ordered. He sat red-faced. Emerson leaned forward. Mr. Corbin, was your car touched, scratched, or damaged? No, Your Honor, but she was close, too close. The law does not compensate for close, sir. It compensates for actual harm. Mr. Corbin, desperate, muttered, You people always stick together. The room froze. Judge Emerson's eyes locked on him. Be very careful, Mr. Corbin.
This court does not tolerate prejudice. Do you understand?" He swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge glanced at both parties. "We'll take a short recess before I deliver my ruling." Her gavel cracked, leaving Raymond sweating while Kendra sat calmly, knowing the case was already collapsing. The courtroom settled as Judge Emerson returned to the bench. She adjusted her glasses, her voice cutting through the silence. "Mr. Corbin, you've brought this court a frivolous lawsuit. You admitted the defendant never touched or damaged your vehicle. You presented no medical proof of emotional distress. You wasted everyone's time." Raymond shot up. "But, Your Honor—" "Sit down." Emerson's tone was steel. He froze. She continued, eyes burning into him. "You think this courtroom exists to soothe your ego. It does not. You filed this case because you didn't like a woman refusing to bow to your arrogance." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Kendra sat composed, hands folded, finally allowing herself the smallest smile. Her sharp brown eyes fixed on him, cutting through his arrogance like glass. "Mr. Corbin," she said, her voice firm and measured, "this court is not your playground. You walked in here expecting your wealth, your title, and your privilege to carry the day. And when that failed, you resorted to something worse, belittling this woman for who she is." Raymond shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his tie. "You see, I know exactly what you implied earlier when you said people like her. That phrase wasn't about cars. It wasn't about parking spaces. It was about race. You looked at Ms. Wallace and saw someone you believed you could bully and intimidate because she is a black woman who dared to stand up to you." Kendra lifted her chin, grateful the judge was naming the truth she had felt in her bones from the start. Judge Emerson leaned forward. "Let me be clear. In this courtroom, race will never be a weapon. Gender will never be a weapon. The law does not bend for privilege, money, or skin color, and as long as I preside, no one will be allowed to twist this system for their own prejudice." The gallery erupted in quiet nods and whispers of agreement. Raymond's face burned red. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. For once, the lawyer had nothing to say. Judge Emerson leaned forward. "Mr. Corbin, if you ever bring such nonsense into my courtroom again, I will see to it that the bar sanctions you. Do I make myself clear?" Raymond's face drained of color. "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. This case is dismissed." Her gavel slammed, echoing like thunder. Raymond slumped in his chair, humiliated, while Kendra stood gracefully, gathering her things. As she walked past him, she whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Next time, try parking your pride in the back lot." The gallery chuckled and the doors closed behind her, leaving Raymond stewing in silence.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful life lessons.